Hello, welcome to the Perennial Wisdom Temple. This is my first YouTube video. It'll be lesson 1, and we'll be discussing the mysteries of death and the incarnation of the soul into matter, and how the ancients knew that when the ancient texts were describing the death of the soul, it's talking about the incarnation, the physical body. They're using a play on words. I'm going to be using some information from Alvin Boyd Kuhn, The Lost Keys to the Scriptures, as well as from my website, with some information that I've gathered there. And we're just going to be basically talking about how our physical life here in the physical realm and our waking everyday state is actually death to the soul. Now, when the soul was in the supernal realm, it was free, liberated, glorious, immutable. And when we decided to descend and physically incarnate, a part of us died to become entombed in matter. And when the Bible talks about the wages of sin is death, notice how if you necessarily sin doesn't necessarily kill you physically, because it's talking about a play on words. See, when we sinned in the transcendental realms or the spirit realm, our soul descended into the physical realm and, metaphorically or figuratively speaking, died. We came from the causal plane, which is unlimited in nature. So let me share my screen briefly so I can go over this topic. It says, in ancient schools and philosophies, it was known that physical embodiment was a death to the soul. The physical body and being entombed in the cross of matter is as much death as the eternal soul can experience. Welcome to the land of the living dead. Do you remember all those skeleton stories and scary skeleton decorations for Halloween? Well, it turns out the joke is on us. We are figuratively but ominously literally dead. The truth is, the home of the soul is eternal and splendid and unlimited. We have form there, but we are formless and mutable. In the eternal realm, we do not have to sit and wait for the bus. We never stub our toe or have to do laborious work. These things are for the land of the dead, aka living human life experience. Alvin Boyd Kuhn explains this in his book, The Lost Keys of the Scriptures, that the ancient philosophers and writers of the dramas of the ancient holy books knew it was common knowledge that the word death meant physical incarnation and life meant the life hereafter in the realm of the spirit. This means that when we became cognizant of life here, when we had our first I am experience, was the day that we died and entered into the tomb and the realm of the living dead, which is why we have skeleton-like bodies. Notice our skeleton-like structure. Yes, we're spiritual beings, eternal souls, but don't forget we are in bodies and we do have skeletal. Our nature is skeletal in nature. And because we descend into this realm, as the Hermetics would say, we descended through the 7 spheres, the 7 planets, and incarnated in the physical realm, we took on characteristics of limitation, one of those being in a physical body made of bone. That's due to Saturn. The Saturnian nature became crystallized and we become entombed in matter. Yeah, we're spiritual beings, but we have beauty on the outside, but on the inside, we're all skeletons. We wake up every morning as a skeleton. Joke's on us. So when we first became cognizant of life here, when we had our first I am experience, mine when I was 3 years old, I was sitting in my little chair eating food, and I remember seeing an airplane go across the sky, and that's my first memory, my first I am cognizance. Before that, you're kind of in an unconscious state. So we are mortal here and have to live by certain limiting laws. This is coming from the perspective and inner knowing that we are eternal and there is no such thing as death, such as complete termination of existence. So this is basically helping us to understand that, yeah, we are dead, but we are immortal. So this is as dead as we can get. Our physical bodies are well alive. My heart is beating. I have experiences every night and day. But compared to our unlimited nature, we are considered dead. And that's why in the Garden of Eden, God says, whoever eats of the apple shall surely die. When we ate that apple, we did die, but because we're immortal, the death was the physical body. We became entombed in matter. So hence only a transition of body form. We should all sit in amazement and awaiting for the day we resurrect or leave this realm. Our final day here will be our transition to the realm of the living souls. In the next video, we're going to be talking about how the soul descends into matter from the subtle realms of cause to the physical manifestations of effect, and how we transverse back up into the eternal realm, hence resurrection, esoterically. So in this realm, the tomb of the soul is the body. This body that was once a tomb for the soul or a cross for the spirit then becomes a womb for the new resurrected life hereafter. We have to follow the eternal principles of birth, death, and sacrifice. Why do we have to do this? Well, because in nature, the sun does this, and as above, so below. The sun births, it gives birth to itself into, after wintertime, December 21st, the light increases, or in the same way our soul fire increases, and then it basically goes into a mature state in summer and then starts declining again. Why does it sacrifice? Well, it labors and sacrifices, but without the sun, there would be no life. And without the internal spirit of God who descended into the physical realm and give life to our organisms, these physical bodies, there would not be this experience. Hence, there's sacrifice. So every day when we go out to feed our families and help our neighbors and to do charity or to look out for each other, we're sacrificing, we're doing labors. But at the same time, we're giving birth to new qualities. So the birth, death, and sacrifice is very important. This is carried out in our lives as we all have someone sacrifices themselves for us by taking care of us, and we have had to take care of others or sacrifice our desires for other people's benefit. This is all a form of sacrifice. Here we are also taught about death. So as a child, we may learn about it through a pet or an animal that's on the side of the road laying motionless, or we may have a pet that dies, or a grandparent. Our first eye to eye, face to face, coming face to face with the mysteries of death here in this physical realm, because us as eternal souls need this lesson. Nothing happens for no reason. We are born here and know very well about cemeteries and morgues and that everybody dies. Here's the tomb of the soul. We are walking sculptors for the inner soul. We need to give birth and become born again to the true life qualities. We need to put to death undesirable conscious elements within our own souls here and now. This is the only realm in existence that the soul can make improvements and learn certain important lessons to take with it on its life journey. It is important to know that the soul had to die to manifest here in a womb. This womb we are born in is our physical mother's womb. When we're born in the heavenly seven dimensions, and when we're first spiritually born in the seventh dimension, we had a spiritual womb that produced us. Now, when we descend to the physical realm, we're also produced by a female womb, our mother. And that womb is also a tomb. So we're entombed in matter. We death to the soul incarnates into a physical body. Then we're born into a womb, throughout a womb. And then we return to the tomb or the womb of creation. But now we're mature souls that have now experienced this world of pain and pleasure and duality. We'll be going into duality and polarity in the next videos to come. But the reason why I want to bring this up is because this changed my life, this perspective. This allowed me to see and understand. This is when I was initiated and understood finally that physical life as we know it in these physical skeletal bodies is death to the soul. We need to put to death also undesirable conscious elements within our own souls here and now. This is because it's the only realm in existence that the soul can make improvements on itself. We learn certain important lessons and take it with us on life journey. So it's important to know that the soul had to die to manifest here in the womb, that this womb we're born in is our physical mother's womb. When we're born in the heavenly subdimension, we had a spiritual womb that produced us. The physical body that is produced here is the tomb for the soul and the cross we have to bear. So if we labor and put to death the inner inhumane elements of life, that like we come here and see good and evil and our inner qualities that are not so good, we could put them to death, because the metaphor of death, or the tarot card death, notice a skeleton, and he's on the white horse of purity, because you know what, death has overtaken the soul and it's become entombed in matter. The symbolism of the card is very deep. We experience death every day. Every day you go to sleep. Sleep is the cousin of death. You experience a miniature death to prepare for the final day that you resurrect from the tomb of matter. So I'd like to share a couple of quotes from Alva Boy Kuhn, Lost Keys to the Scriptures. page 13 of Alvin Boyd Kuhn. Sorry, I didn't get on the camera. The Lost Keys to the Scriptures. He was an initiate who understood the esoteric meaning of the scriptures. If the body was home of the soul in its condition of death, then it was the grave, the tomb, the sarcophagus, the sepulchre, the mummy case of the soul. And so one finds the sages referring to the physical corpus of man as the prison, the underground dungeon, the pit, the cave, and finally the tomb of the soul. This life, they said, was the soul's death, as conversely, the soul's free life in the higher worlds was the body's death. But the modern mind knows no meaning applicable to the word death that does not connote actual existence of life or being. So it is puzzled to understand how the sagacious prophets of old could attribute life to the bodily part of man that actually does die, while the bodily part of man that actually does die, while representing as dead the spiritual part that can never die. So what he's basically saying is we have it twisted. We think that our physical body, which is death to the soul, is being alive, and we think that after this body dies is death. It's actually not. When this body dies, we come to life. And that's the beautiful secret that I'm here to share with you guys today, to become initiated into the mysteries and understand the truth of who you truly are. Find another part of this through death to life. Heraclitus, the first philosopher generally mentioned in histories of philosophy, gives expression to the conception, which is quite basic for the intelligent approach to this ancient view of the soul's life in the body. He speaks of the several elements formed by the graduations of atomic composition of matter at different levels, and says that a lower one lives the death of a higher one, as a higher one dies under the life of a lower one. Water lives the death of air, he says, as air lives the death of fire. This is to say that the seed of a higher life must give its vital essence over to a sort of static death, when it projects its energies outward and downward and incorporates them in organisms existing on the plane below its own status. So essentially, spiritual being, or our spiritual being, died and sacrificed itself and death to the soul to give life to these physical automaton beings, which we call humans, which are little tombs. Not in a bad way, it's figuratively speaking, but it's very poetic. We go into the Book of the Dead, and we understand that the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead is not really for people in the afterlife. It's for us, because it's the book for the dead. We are dead because they're referring to the spiritual life above this realm as being alive, and when we're incarnate into these fleshly bodies as death. And if you don't understand that key, then it could be confusing when you're reading these books. Could a deceased person take his Book of the Dead with him and use it as a manual for his conduct in the land of spirits? Inaudibly, a Bible must be meant to appropriation to the life of the world in which it was produced and in which it could be read, and to edify the life lived therein. So it's basically saying that the Book of the Dead was supposed to be translated as the day of manifestation, or the coming forth by day. This sounded more suggestive of the resurrection than of death, and sure enough, the very first chapter of the collection dealt with the resurrection. The puzzle deepened, but it was not to find its amazing resolution until sometime later. So, for those whom they dub the dead are ourselves, the living humans. The antique tome of supernal wisdom and transcendental knowledge was, after all, not as Budge and all the other big-lingual scholastics thought, written for the benefit of the dead in their sense in all periods of Egyptian history, but it was supposed to be written as common logic as they insisted they should be for the benefit of living mortals. So even in the Bible, when it says, to die, don't eat of the apple, for you shall surely die. It's talking about don't eat of the apple because the apple is the Taurus field. When you bite the apple, you fall into physical carnation. And this is where a place that a lot of negative things happen, a lot of deadly things. We have quotes to say, deadly, dude, that was deadly. We end up in graves, we're eaten by worms. We're in a world where it's possible to go mentally insane. It's possible to cause harm to others. See, in the spiritual realm, those things they don't occur. But because we're physically entombed in matter, we have to bear our cross. We have to resurrect from the tomb just like Christ did. the allegory of coming forth from the tomb. The spirit blossoms from matter and maintains its individuality forever in eternal progression. And this is the purpose of life. But it's definitely an initiation to comprehend and meditate on the fact that the soul died to give birth to this physical body. And when this physical body dies, we return to the land of living. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and look forward to the next one, where we'll be learning about how the soul descended into matter for the various levels of the 7 planets and our goal to reascend. Thank you.